Alright, hello everybody. I'm not sure how well this is picking up my mic, but I thought I'd try something a bit new. Been a bit stilted creatively, so I thought I'd try something different. So I thought, why not try and make a YouTube video? Because that's usually what people do. This is something I've been trying to do for a long time now, but I could never get past the editing phase. So I recently had the thought, why not do something more like a vlog or a podcast, where I just sort of shoot the shit, do whatever, and I just thought, why not practice my drawing as well, because my drawings aren't too good, and I've wanted to work on them. So I thought I'll do an episode a day, sort of pick a topic, and just see how it goes from there. So all these are in this red coal erase paper, so I'm actually going to switch to this more darker, blacker thing so that you guys can see it better. So I thought I'd pick a topic, and one topic I've very much been wanting to talk about is about Xenoblade 3, because I played that over the summer and I loved it, but there's like issues that me as a writer I kind of got to work through. So I got a picture of Noah from the game up on the screen in front of me, so I'm just going to draw that and just sort of discuss my feelings. Don't be expecting high-tier art. This is mostly just me talking. And the art is just a side thing. You're not going to get anything great. But what I want to start with to preface this is, aside from the fact that I don't particularly think my art skills are that good, is I like the game. I very much enjoyed it. Xenoblade was a franchise I got into when I first got my Switch. I got Xenoblade 2, and I was very much enjoyed 2. I got 1 when the definitive edition came out. I very much enjoyed that, and I was very hyped when 3 was announced. And I tried to avoid any sort of videos for it, and I got the first day it came out, that sort of deal. And I just very much enjoyed it. Do I think it's as good as the other two? Yes. Is it the weakest of the trilogy? Also yes. At least in my opinion. This is all just my thoughts, this is my opinion, you don't gotta take it as fact. That's the last thing I want you to do. But I think it's the weakest because of one main aspect that I think everyone in the fandom has agreed is like the worst aspect of the game, and that's the villains. Because Xenoblade usually has really good villains, like Malos and Jin and 2 are really good. Egiel and even Zanza is... This is just all spoilers for Xenoblade, by the way. Xenoblade 1 to 3, all of them. But Malos and Jin are good. Egiel and Zanza are good. Even like side villains like Bana in 2, he's good in that comedically stupid kind of way. But he's good. I really don't know what I'm doing with this drawing. He's good. So I was really excited to see what the villains in 3 were going to be like, especially from the trailer, because we got, as the fandom dubbed him, Mr. Wild Ride. He was very interesting to sort of watch. Just who we all kind of, I don't know about you guys, but I very much saw him in the first trailer and I was like, oh hey, Metal Face is back. And that's very much how he is in the first half of the game. He is just the metal face of the group. He's the one that's there when the plot starts, and whenever the plot needs a baddie to just come by and say bad guy things, they just get metal face. But the thing about him is that metal face, in the game, he's called D. Mr. Wild Ride is D. I'm hoping you already knew that. Sorry, I'm half like engrossed in my drawing. and half trying to gather my thoughts here. But again, that was kind of the idea. I wanted a more vlog-like thing. This is also kind of my first time drawing Noah. It doesn't look too bad so far. I think it is really the hair that'll make you go, yeah, that's Noah. That's the boy. But anyways. He was good in the first half. D was. Because if you don't know, in the game, in 3, all the villains are named by like the first letter of the alphabet. So like there's D, there's J, and the final boss is Z because he's cool like that. So yeah, that's kind of how that works. Let's try to sort of block out how his hair is. But yeah, no, that's sort of how they work. And D is he's very wisecracking and whatnot. Again, like Metalface, he was a very wisecracking villain. And I felt like D could have been done a bit better, but my main problem with him was like, he was more like the villain for Uni's arc. Because Uni had an arc in the game where she's like overcoming her fear, because D was the one that like killed her in a past life, because there's this whole past life thing, because of course there is at Xenoblade. So I just felt like he could have been done better, and also like there's other villains, like I feel like the big thing with D was like they didn't really flesh him out until his final scene when he dies. Then they're just suddenly giving him all this backstory, which I felt was really out of place because it's not even really a scene built around his backstory. It's more about Yorin and his whole thing. Because, like, he has a partner named Yorin who's, like, their friend. And it's all emotional, and it's all about really Yorin. Yet, in the background, there's D just trying to give a bunch of, like, really scary advice saying, like, oh, I'll add you to my collection of giant heads, because he collects giant heads. That's what I get for trying to add pupils. Anyways... let's just zoom in on that Noah. There's Noah. Yeah, that's my best Noah. But he's just going on and on throughout this whole scene, and it's like, even with Yorin's backstory, I didn't even care about that. Like, because it comes at a time when, yeah, you don't really care. Like, if you're trying to do 2 villains... emotional scenes at once, then like, what's the point? As opposed to like Metalface, who he's very clearly trying to emulate. Metalface was very much like you learn his backstory in the first scene of the game, literally. Because you learn like, oh, his name was Mumkar, he was this guy. And then you later learn like Mumkar and Metalface are the same person, yada yada yada. I'm gonna take a sip of water. Apologies if this is all sounding a bit rambling. I'm still very much trying to get the hang of how I want this show to go, or these videos to go. But I'm just gonna do some idle frames just to get the rhythm. But I was very much not happy with the villains, because like D's just spouting all his backstory and shit when like it's not needed. Like, you could have moved this scene, you should have had this scene ages ago, like when Uni's having her emotional arc with overcoming her fear of D. Like, that would have been better. Because imagine if he was talking about like all this stuff of his collection while Uni is like half terrified, trying to overcome her fears and her past of what she's remembering with the whole thing with D. But instead it comes at this scene where D is not the focus. He's really not, he's just sort of there. And the real focus is on Yorin and his relationship with his friends, instead of anything decent. Or just more his focus with... You get what I mean. Like, they should have done that scene back when Uni was actually being terrified, and it would have worked there. Because that's the moment where D, and really the last moment in the game, where D is really the villain. Aside from the scene where it's more of a Yorin scene than it is D. I don't know why I keep drawing heads last on these frames, I shouldn't. Because then they're never scale and the neck's always too damn long. But yeah, even with that, even without D and J and Yorin and whatnot, like, we can just move on to them. None of the other villains really stand out. Like, there's like a group of them, and there's like 26 of them, so it's not like Xenoblade 2, where it's just the same group, small group of villains throughout the whole thing. It's like, you kind of switch between them each time, so like, there's a pair called O and P, and there's B, I think, and C. I know there's a C. Then there's like just pointless ones like Q. Did I say Q? I don't know. And then at the end there's like X, Y, and Z. X and Y don't get shit all of a backstory. Like X has a personality, but Y is just there. And even Z, who's supposed to be the big bad, he's just there. He's just there, like, he's supposed to be this, like, amalgamation of, like, all our thoughts and fears, and I felt like they didn't do enough with it. Like, and I feel like it was just because there were no scenes with him in the main cast until the end. Like, because when you look back at 1 and 2, like, there were multiple scenes where even the big bad who comes at the very end, like Sansa in 1, like, there are scenes where they talk with the heroes in the middle of the game, and you're not done yet, and you're just and you're just sort of met with how these characters sort of talk and interact with each other, and you get a better read on the personality. And that's what I felt was missing with Zed. There are 2 villains that are really, really good in 3, and you've probably been wanting me to mention them, and that's N and M. And they are really well done, and they are really well written, and they are the best villains, arguably the best characters in all of Xenoblade 3. Like, those 2 are just really well done, really tragic. The entirety of Chapter 5, of course, amazing. But yeah, that was just something that I felt like the rest of the cast could have been that good. The rest of the cast of villains. I feel like what they should have done was get rid of, like, the evil faction of people. Like, maybe get rid of all of them and just not have them as the main focus. Like, just have that small-knit group of, like, N and M, D and J, then X, Y, and Z. And just have those guys. And T. We gotta have Triton. It's just not Xenoblade 3 without Triton. But yeah, I felt like if they had just focused more on that group, like maybe we got X instead of O and P for the Ethel and Kamaravi. I can't say words. That guy. If we got those 2, if we got X and Y for those scenes, like, it would probably have given us a better read on X and Y's personality and how they interact with characters, or like if Zed showed up every once in a while and just gloated or something, because again, he doesn't really do much until the end. Like, he's like Thanos in the first 2/3 of the Marvel MCU. He's just sitting in the chair and he's not doing anything. Anyways, I'm gonna do some eye doodles. And by that I mean I'm going to draw a single eye and be too scared to draw the matching eye. As we move on from less story things, because I think I've said my piece about the villains, to gameplay, because there is one gameplay element that I wasn't really too big a fan of, and this is just sort of, I want to only really do one big video talking about all my issues with 3. I'm not a fan of the hero system, and that's only because I feel the blade system is better. And I know what you're all gonna say. I farmed multiple hours on Relentless Aradan trying to do the gachas, and it is and the gacha system, I get a personal enjoyment out of it, but that's just because I don't have to spend a lot of money. But I get it. I totally get it. You don't like gacha. You don't like spending hours grinding. I get that. But I liked the way the blades were sort of set up better. Because the heroes, not only are they automatically like top of their game, until you unlock like the affection quest that like unlocks them again straight up to the 2nd rank, top again. Like, but it's also very random how much content they get. Because with the blades in 2, you get the blades, you get 1 heart-to-heart and 1 mission, and that was it. And yeah, it wasn't much for like your favorite blade, but it also meant that like no 2 blades were different. Like they all had the same amount of time, same amount of screen time. It felt fair. It is not fair in 3. Like, it is very random. Like, I'm gonna call this, but like Juniper she's a good character, but apparently her hero things suck. I don't know, I don't care about stats, I care about characters, but it's like, she is in half of the other hero quests. She really is. She's just, and she's not even like, and she's a main character in like half of them. She's a main character in arguably the longest hero quest, goddamn potato farming sim with Xeon. And it's just, I don't know if you can see my head. Okay, it doesn't look like my head came in there. But it's just crazy how much time she'd just show up in other people's side quests. In like other hero quests. Like, and it was just crazy. Well, like favorites of mine, like I felt like Trinding. Well, Trine got bit. He got a couple quests, but one of my favorite heroes was Ethel, and I really liked Ethel as a character because I was a huge Morag fan in 2. And I know what you're thinking, oh, she's in the story. Yeah, but after her story role is done, she kind of just drops off and never does anything. Which sucks, because they do such a great idea with her, of her being like this reincarnated self who doesn't have the memories of being Ethel the hero. Silver Code Ethel, as they say. She's just a girl now. And I thought, like, ooh, they could do something really interesting, and they start to, because Kamaravi's whole thing is finding younger Ethel, who was, like, his rival, and they, just kind of not knowing who the other one is, they kind of get together. And it's just kind of like, you're just kind of waiting for something to happen, and you get one scene where, like, Ethel is aged back up to an adult, and then you're like, oh boy, what's their relationship going to be like now? And you just get nothing, really. Like, they're never really around much. They don't really do much. So, like, after they're been in the main story is done, like, they really just kind of drop off, because all that extra shit with Kamaravi and, like, being reborn and whatnot, it's all optional. And they were really building it up like it wasn't going to be, because they kept coming back to scenes of her in the tube that, like, births people, because it's Xenoblade, it's weird like that. But it was just kind of disappointing that they didn't really do anything in the story with it. Like, it could have been a really interesting angle. Like, it was kind of similar when Aegeon goes back into his core crystal in 2. Like, it's like, ooh, he remembers nothing. But even then, like, no one really cared about Aegeon. So it just kind of felt like I really wish that they had done more. And again, like other heroes of mine, I can't really think of any off the top of my head, but like it seemed the ones I liked the most kept getting very little in terms of quests and heart-to-hearts and whatnot, while ones I didn't like, I wasn't really too fond of, like Valdi. I don't really mind Valdi, he's just sort of passable to me, but he has like a bunch of scenes that I'm not really too fond of. It just kind of felt like he was not doing too much. And he's in the main story too. Like, there's a whole arc with him. He shows up, and he's in the main story. Same with Juniper. She's in the main story, and she gets a lot of content post-game. While Ethel and Kalmaravi, who are both in the main story, are not. We don't even see Kalmaravi's colony. Like, wouldn't that be impressive to sort of see him return to his colony, or see Ethel return to to her colony? And you can do that with Ethel, but nothing really comes out of it. Like, there's just a bit where Bolearis is just like, hey, that looks like Ethel. Nah, I'm just crazy. But they don't really do much with it. So I was really disappointed that they weren't doing much with it. It was also like, another thing, this is just my bias, because if you were to ask me, I prefer Xenoblade 2 over Xenoblade 1, but like, Melia got a lot of neat content, while Nia just kind of got like a mission. I don't know, but Nia shows up in the story earlier. I will say, like, another thing that's sort of my issue, but that's more just me being, and that was also a fault of the marketing. This is something that people always agree with when talking about 3, is like there weren't really many callbacks or references to 1 and 2, which is fine, because it does make the story stand on its own, and it's very clear that like the DLC that's coming up, which I'm very excited for, is going to be having those like callbacks and references. But I just thought I'd bring that up just to say, like, it was another thing that kind of took down a notch my enjoyment. I gotta do it like this because it's angled, but it sort of brought down my enjoyment a bit. But I'm fairly certain that Xenoblade 3 on a second playthrough I'll come back enjoying more than I did on the first one. And I already enjoyed it on the first one, don't get me wrong. But on that second playthrough I'm probably gonna come back liking it even more. Bayonetta 3 on the other hand, probably not. But that's another story for another day. I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed whatever these drawings were. This was very much an experimental sort of idea. Just sort of try and see what people think, what I should do differently, ways to help me focus. But anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this little just chat where I just sort of talk. Maybe I could just try and draw sort of better things, like plot. Like plot point A, and it doesn't mesh well with plot point B or something. Do that for next time. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this little experiment, this little test trial, and if you have any tips for me, let me know. If you want to talk more about like your issues or praises of Xenoblade, just go down in the comments and I'll probably be around. And I hope you all enjoyed this. And if you got any sort of topic you want me to sort of talk about next time, let me know. Anyways, I'm Cartoon Nickname. Hope you all enjoyed.